Clap.
Clap.
Oh, sorry. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to episode, we think it's number 36. If we're wrong, well, probably no one cares. So look at the headlines of what the YouTubes say. It is that time of year again, beginning of school. Brent has a couple kids that are going to be doing some school stuff. I've got a couple kids who'll be doing some school stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But before we start us off, Brent doesn't know I'm going to say this. Don't tell everybody your passwords, kids. I work in IT, and especially this time of year, we get a ton of phone calls. I haven't even been able to go out to a couple of school sites that I was meaning to because I've been fielding the phone calls. They won't stop. Most of them are about passwords because if you don't use it for 2 months, you forget it, apparently, which is normal, I guess. But it's amazing how many people are just so okay with giving out passwords. Maybe they figure it's work, it's not necessarily to their bank or whatever else, but I wouldn't be too terribly sure. I wouldn't be very confident that they're not also using these passwords somewhere else. So, don't use your passwords somewhere else. As annoying as it is, they should be unique everywhere you go. And don't give them out, even if it's to an IT specialist that you're calling for a very specific reason. Don't do that. Safety first, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, school, technology. My kids will be going to a new school. Yeah, they've never gone there before. And it's a mishmash of go to school, but work at home as well. And I've been told that they'll be given a Chromebook. And, that's nice, right? You get to do whatever you need to do in the classroom and then at home as well. I think they're probably more excited about it than I am. But
let me ask you a question there.
Go ahead.
In this, my kids have always done homeschooling, so I don't know how this technology in the schools works. For the system that you're in there, and I don't know if this is the same everywhere or if it changes from one place to another. Is that a thing that they need to then turn in at the end of the year, or is it basically theirs for the life of their tenure at that school?
This specific school, I believe they turn it in when they stop going there. If they leave early, in the middle of the year or at the very end of the year, it's like turning in your books or whatever else, in the library or something. It is checked out to the student beginning of the year at some point in time, and then they return it. But there are other schools that it is your device until you leave that school. I'm actually kind of a fan of that. There's a little more personal ownership, although they don't own it. They tend to care for it a little more from what I've seen. And they learn really what real life is about when you're using a device, when you first get it versus 3 or 4 years later, how things really seem to slow down because, hardware stays the same, software doesn't. And then there's an issue, but that's life. When you go out and you buy a computer, that's how things are. Unless you buy a new computer every single year, that's what you're dealing with. There are other schools, actually in our district, some schools check them out just on a daily basis. Each classroom has a cart with 30 or so in it, and they come in, they sit down. Either the teacher hands them out, or the kids go and actually get it out of the cart. They do their routine, and then they put it back. So schools are different. For my kids, I believe it's checked out, and then they check it back in at the end of the school year. My nose won't stop itching.
Okay.
So in your case, you're just using your home devices, right? Because your kids are 100% at home.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And do they provide any financial assistance with the hardware? Because there's a couple schools. I say a couple schools. They're more. I don't even know how you'd classify them, because I guess technically they're not a school, but they're associated with an online school district curriculum thing. That, from what I understand, they provide a almost like a stipend. You go out and you can spend up to this amount per child on paper technology and other things, because the school's not actually paying for that. There's no brick and mortar building for them to walk into. So they're not paying all of that extra cost to do all that. So they actually give you that money to go buy some stuff. And then if you don't go through the whole length of the curriculum, you either pay it back or a portion of it, or you turn in the device. But if you go through the whole curriculum, you actually get to keep the device, or the student gets to keep the device. So that's an interesting idea as well.
Say, you get to keep the kid, huh?
Some people would probably rather keep the device.
Right. In Kentucky, the state that we are.
You are.
Every year we have to, huh?
You.
We are.
Not we, not you family. And me. Yeah, your family. I don't want any part of that.
Sure.
Not very nice, but
sorry. There's a whole lot of people here that would like out, so it's all right. Yeah. The state, I'm trying to think of the wording. First of all, and it may be the same in every state, I don't know, but in Kentucky, those that are doing homeschool have to send a letter to the school board every year stating that their children will be doing homeschool.
Okay.
And then so long after that, we typically, anyway, I believe we have every year, received another letter that basically says something to the effect of, hey, there's this aid for schools, because we basically have to register as a school.
Oh, okay.
There's this aid for schools. Do you want to participate? We have not done that, so I don't know how it works, to be quite honest with you. I don't know how much financial aid is involved and what it is specifically for. I do believe that it is probably similar to what you said in that it's, technology focused rather, but I don't know the details. But we get that letter every year, and we always just check the box, no thank you, and move on about our business.
And why do you, just out of curiosity, check the box?
Just, we don't want the hassle of having to turn in all this mess for either taxes or additional receipts, and just less of a hassle. And we have enough technology here in the house that takes care of what we need. I don't want to add any additional devices that I have to maintain. I certainly don't want any devices here that somebody else is maintaining, just merely because I have a very little trust value from people that I don't know. So maybe I need to work on that. But either way, that's what I have. So that's basically why. We've got enough to get the job done already. I don't need to bother with other stuff.
That makes sense. So what type of, I think a few episodes ago, we talked about some iPads that you guys are using there. Are you using any other devices, or is it, you're chiseling into rocks, or you're using pencil and paper?
Yeah, stone tablets. Yeah, using that. The son uses the iPad there. Yeah, there actually is something not too far away, but they don't let us in. So my son uses an iPad, the 2018, with the pencil. He also has workbooks. We have that because I don't want him looking, as he gets older, like he writes everything with his feet. I would like to be able to read what he writes. So,
but if he loses his arms,
paper.
That's going to come in handy. So, kind of future-proof.
You're right.
Writing with your feet.
But it's not actually writing with his feet. It just looks like he's writing with his feet.
Oh.
So, yeah. It's a little different. So the girl, the daughter, she uses a laptop. We have it's an i5. I bought it. It's not too old. Let's call it 6 months. I don't know how old it is, to be honest with you. But it's not too terribly old. It's not an amazing one. It's not like an i5 from 6 months ago. We got it on sale. So it may be like a 6th gen instead of what is the current 8 gen? Is that what the currents are?
Depends on what you buy, 8 or 9, yeah.
Right. So I don't, to be honest, know if it's 5, 6, 7 gen, 7th gen. I don't think it's 7th. Anyway, we only paid like $300, $400 for it. I don't spend much money on their computers because they're just going to be YouTube devices outside of whatever school stuff we have for them. So I'm not going to spend a lot of money on it. Although I did one year buy for about $600 a computer that I thought was a i5. Turned out it was an i3, and I didn't realize that until a few years later because I didn't use it. I was just using it. Well, I didn't use the device. I would just log into it, make, whatever changes with Microsoft stuff for the parental, whatever, and then just move on about it. And my son would complain about how slow it was. And I was like, well, it shouldn't be. And then 3 years later, mess with it. And I'm like, my goodness, this is the slowest thing on the planet. How do you use this? And I
That's
was
funny.
apologizing to him. Oh, my goodness, I should have known. But I could have
Yeah,
swore I saw the i5 on the box. Either way,
it doesn't
that's
matter now.
what the daughter uses, because she uses online classes. She is actually a part of a school system, I suppose is how you'd phrase it, where there's a curriculum specific to a grade and all that, very similar to just being in a classroom.
Okay.
And so she uses the computer to do that. And if she needs to turn in assignments, documents, whatever, she uses Word, or she might use Google, what's that?
Docs.
Docs, I guess it is. Yep. So yeah, that's where that goes. That's the type of technology we're using here for school.
Cool. All right, good. Yeah, they're trying to get into ours, BYOD, bring your own device type stuff. And it's not easy because we have almost 85% of our children in the school district here are considered poverty level. And I don't know what that is financially. It might be extremely low, or it might be actually not too bad. Poverty to one is probably different to someone else. But, that at the very least, it means what one kid might have, the kid sitting right next to him might have something considerably better or considerably worse. And that's part of the reason why they do either the one-to-one or the classroom sets, is just to kind of level the playing field so that someone's not being more frustrated with the device that they're using. They tried to do, polls in the classroom, because you can go to a website, create some sort of generic poll that says, hey, how many, here's a question, here's a series of answers, which answer do you choose? And that's kind of an interesting and fast way and anonymous, which is important in some cases, way of understanding the kids in your classroom. Obviously, if they're homeschooled like yours are, if they're partially homeschooled like mine, we just need to know however many children we have. We have some friends who have 5, 6, or 7 children, and they're all homeschooled. So that's almost a classroom set right there, just for that one family. But, and of course, they're all varying ages as well. But I like the idea of BYOD from a parental side, because then I can control the devices. They're not asking for any management control. But then I don't like it because, they might expect certain level of stuff, or we're kind of a Google house here, so they might expect Androids or something like that. I don't like Android tablets, and I'm not a huge fan of the phones. There's a couple that I would probably use, but I'm still choosing to use an iPhone. And then the Chromebooks, that's hit or miss, depending on the product. The Chrome OS is good for the very narrow use that some people would use it for. Obviously, still installing and running Photoshop or any video editing stuff, that's a different story altogether. But if it's just Google Docs or Sheets or Slides, those are the Google products, then, and of course, YouTube, can't forget about YouTube. That's extremely important. Even to the teachers nowadays, all the videos that they try to use, we used to subscribe to video services, and we've actually stopped doing that on a district level, because a lot of the video curriculum that they want to show is actually already online in YouTube in one way, shape, or form. It might just be a whiteboard, it might be a full-on video, or just one of those scrolling text things, which are riveting for the kids. They're totally into those. But so they're doing what they can. But it's interesting to see what's going on with technology in the classroom. I think I've stated this before. Although I work in technology, I work in IT in a school district, I still think we rely on it more than we should. Getting back to pen and paper, getting back to actual books is a good thing. And maybe a little bit of nostalgia, but if you're sharing the book over 3 or 4 years, I guess it's a bit grimy, right? And being able to hold just one tablet that has 10 books versus 10 actual books that weigh 5 pounds apiece. So there's positives and negatives on both sides of the field, but still, I prefer a balance, that's what's always hard in this type of an environment, is to have that type of balance, because a lot of it's depending on how much funding we're getting for the year, and sometimes, man, money's just falling out of the sky, and then the next year or two is a drought, and if it wasn't spent properly the year before, well, you're stuck. Someone here painted 6 walls and didn't buy a classroom set of computers, and next year that wall looks great, but their classroom is left in the dust versus the one next to it. So it's definitely an interesting conundrum, one that I just have to support. I don't have the decision-making powers, which sometimes is frustrating, but most of the time is not, because when I go home, I don't have to worry about anything. I get paid enough to pay my bills.
So what do you...
Great. What's that?
Right. So in some of the podcasts that I've listened to, there have been a fair amount of teachers that have been guests on them. So I'm curious from your standpoint, and maybe you guys just merely don't allow this, I don't know, but there's been a lot of teachers that talk about using Apple TVs in the classroom for schools that are iPad related, that are using the iPad. And the school system doesn't have the money to provide the classrooms. They use a projector and an iPad, or a TV screen, a monitor, and an iPad. So, and an Apple TV. So the teachers are buying it themselves and bringing it in, and then trying to connect to the Wi-Fi and having issues. And that's where I've heard about them on all of these podcasts, is they're trying to find out ways, or they have found a way that works, and they're sharing it to connect to the Wi-Fi. Before it was where it was harder to connect directly to the Apple TV, where you had to connect to the same Wi-Fi. Nowadays, I believe Bluetooth will, they'll do it over Bluetooth, but
you make
for the iPad,
they allow you to make a direct connection now. So
right.
Yeah, you can bypass. It's still preferred to use the shared Wi-Fi network, but if that's not available or not working, then you can connect directly to it. I've never used it. I don't know how well it works, but
yeah. So in your school
then?
system, is that something that is allowed?
No.
Is that so? You don't have, so it's not allowed. Okay, because that was my question: was that something, if a teacher brings in their own device, their own product, for the purpose of teaching the class, then does it fall on your side to support whatever? But it doesn't sound like it's the case.
I'm going to just answer the question per me, because the way the district handles it is slightly different. And I'll get into that in a second. And I'll be brief about both. I'm never brief. What am I talking about? From my perspective, based off of the rules that we have in place, plus California laws, there's supposedly a law that says if I bring in my laptop from home and plug it into a government building's power outlet or network, it becomes theirs. I don't, and I think they do that just because if something is found out to be bad or wrong or whatever else, they have legal basis to acquire it without too much paperwork. We don't enforce that. If it is actually a law, I've never seen it written, but I've been told this from quite a few people who probably should know. So with that, obviously, the more stuff you bring in from home, the more stuff we own, and we don't necessarily want to own all these things. Again, if we were to enforce it, we don't, but if we did. But also, typically, in most cases, the teachers that do something like this, it's like this fine line that you have to ride, because as a support person, these are kind of the annoying teachers. But as a parent, they're probably the teacher that I would want my kid to be in their classroom, because they're pushing the boundaries. They're doing it because they feel it's a way to actually reach the kids, not just accepting whatever the district is saying and then rolling with it. Because 9 times out of the 10, the district is just saying it's a regurgitation of either last year or 10 years ago. And so it might not actually apply to the kids that are in the classroom, or it's a whole district wide thing, but a school over here is completely different dynamics than schools over here. So for me, a blanket sweep is no, don't bring it in. You bring it in. Sorry, take it home. we're going to hunt you down on the network and we're going to block it. But now, with that said, there have been a few cases to where it's been allowed here in our district, at least, as a test. Okay, how cumbersome is it if we were to do this? Most of it is just more a management nightmare. Management for us, but also personnel management on the other side. There's so many Android devices out there. Is it fair to say you can only bring in an Apple TV? You can't bring in one of those little Android boxes that are absolutely everywhere on eBay? With you bringing those, well, how many security risks, how many security holes are you now entering or opening on the network, right? That's a huge problem, at least from the IT standpoint. Most here, and they're not even shy about, don't seem to care too much. But we do.
But don't you get that anyway with kids bringing their devices, their phones, or are their phones blocked on the network?
Their phones are allowed on the guest network, but that's completely segregated. So that VLAN basically just blocks them. They can get to the internet. It's just a funnel to the internet. If you're going to put something on the network to where it's allowed to then be shared with another device and project to a projector, you're going to probably want that to be on the internal infrastructure because it's usually a little more stable. Well, then you're potentially then opening that up to other computers as well as networks and servers and whatever else. So there's a security risk that comes with that. But again, we have done it on a temporary basis and as a test basis. There's actually been a couple of schools that have gone out and purchased 10 or 15 Apple TVs for their classroom. All right, teachers, individually, you are now on your own to get this working. All right, in 2 months and 6 months after the end of the school year, come back to us with your findings. And as much as I like the Apple TV, we have one at home, and we do use the sharing and to the mirroring onto the TV quite a bit. It's just not, at least on a security and manageability level, it's not there yet, unfortunately. We've been using more of the Chromecast. Nope, that's not true. Yeah, it's kind of true. But we've been using more of the Miracast, Microsoft's wireless display adapter. The Miracast standard as a name hasn't really taken off, but the Microsoft one has because it's on the Surfaces, the Surface Pros and whatnot.
Right.
They have a tendency to heat up. And so the video, if you're trying to use it all day long, they kind of lock, especially when they're plugged directly into the back of a projector and you have your exhaust fan right there. So it's exhausting the heat right onto that silly thing. So we're trying various things. The tried and true way right now is just a desktop or a laptop hardwired by HDMI or VGA into a wall, running up inside the wall over to the projector. And that's how most of it still happens. Like I said, we're still trying to play with a little bit of them, a little bit of these wireless display things, but it's still, in an environment like this, it's still in its infancy. Things move quickly though, so you never know what it'll be in another year or two, maybe even this year. We are trying to make a lot of changes. We've been shifted into a whole different division inside of the district. IT has, and part of the reason is so that we can have a little bit more of a say in how things work in the classroom, but also how they use the term bridge the gap, but basically what that means is to have that communication be there to make it a little more strong. Because a lot of times they come up with these things and we're like, you know what, if this is in your backyard or the garage, that's fantastic. But unfortunately we have to look at the bigger picture, and that's a frustration for a lot of people, but fortunately they're still allowing us to say that. So we'll see. I tell most of my kids' teachers when they're in the district that I can support, and they are now again, let me know. I am now your dedicated technician. I'm okay with saying that. And I let my department know this teacher is going to get preferential treatment because my kid's in their class. Just FYI. So far, no one's ever gotten mad at me for that. But I want their network and stuff to be up and running. But myself and at least a couple other people in the department, but I can definitely say as a department as a whole, we want things to be successful across the board for absolutely everybody. I've talked to people in other businesses and in other school districts, and that doesn't seem to be the case. Just where's my paycheck? And obviously where's my paycheck? I do want it, but that's why I'm here, but, getting these kids online, I don't think it needs to be 100% all the time. but we have a lot of programs that are online, and we have a lot of services that we use that are online only, which is nice. That means less servers that we have to worry about. There probably will be a day where we will have maybe one server for the whole district, and everything else will be online. It's not now, especially for security reasons. Too many things get hacked, and there are legal obligations that we need to keep. But
Speaking,
this is spun off into a different topic altogether, really. But I guess
right.
it's still important, because you need to know the back end. I'm fortunate to understand both sides, and I don't understand the front of it, the classroom level, as much as I'd like. But it's a learning experience for everybody, and I'm still trying to learn the classroom side. I think once I learn it a little better, I can probably support it a little better as well.
All right. Well, we're at 26 minutes. I don't know if we want to. I just looked over and it looked like I may have been blurry. Shouldn't be blurry, camera.
Oh boy.
You got a lock on my face.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was going to ask you a question about, because you had mentioned security, but about thumb drives. Every time you go to Walmart or Target or something this time of year, they've got thumb drives on sale. Like, kids need them that much. So I was going to ask you about that, but maybe next time we can continue this topic of school technology, and maybe either swing it back to the kids in the classroom or keep it at this level. But I'm curious about what they might use that for, because if they've got their own device, what do they need a thumb drive for, really?
Right.
But if they're interchanging between devices, I could see it being useful, but then I could also see that being a security nightmare. So
yeah, well, write that down so you don't forget. Again, we'll talk about it next week.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll text it to you. I'll create a little document, about it. Okay. And maybe we can chit-chat about it a little bit next time.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that concludes this webisode. Anybody still using that phrase? And we'll continue the topic and maybe talk about a few other things. I'm trying to play with 9-volt battery replacements. Man, everybody has a replacement for every battery, but 9-volt is the pain in the butt. You have to use like 8 AA's to replace a 9-volt. So that's kind of a pain. But anyways, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit because I'm playing with some stuff right now. See everybody next time.
Sounds like fun.
Ciao.
See you.